Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and you're all very welcome today to our discussion on learning and technology. And I'm delighted to be joined by Janet Benson, our learning lead here at Learnovate. How are you today, Janet?
Great. How are you, Linda?
I'm good, not too bad. I'm looking out at a beautiful sunny day in Kildare, and I'm sure it's the same up in Sligo as well.
Well, for a change, it is actually sunny in Sligo, so it's nice to take it while we can get it.
Absolutely, definitely, exactly. So, Janet, I suppose, would you be able to share a little bit about your background with us to start off?
Absolutely. So my background is very firmly in the world of learning and development, which I worked in for, I'd say almost 15 years in a variety of roles, from learning development, so developing materials as part of a global team, to kind of education manager for a technology company. And I did my master's also with the University of Edinburgh in digital education. So I guess from my perspective here at the Learnovate Centre, it's great to have the theory, the background in adult learning theory and what learning theories work, as well as the practical experience that I gained from L&D to be able to bring that to our clients at Learnovate. So yeah, that's just a bit about me.
Right. Thanks very much, Janet. So, okay, let's get straight into it. I suppose in the current climate of COVID-19, institutions and workplaces are having really to rely on remote working and the use of technology to provide learning to their employees and students. So, Janet, I suppose, would you be able to share with us some of the insights and tips that would help our audience with online learning?
Absolutely. So I guess starting from a very high level, really, one of the first things I would recommend to anyone who's kind of moving to that online environment is just not to assume anything. So for example, a lot of companies and a lot of institutions kind of rely on moving what they have face-to-face content-wise onto an online platform and assuming then that learning will occur. And we know for a fact that that just doesn't work. So just moving your material onto an online platform, whether that's a learning management system or whatever you have, isn't learning. It's just really just providing people with information. But also with regard to assumptions, I think it's important not to assume that your students or your employees have access to technology. For example, we don't know what their Wi-Fi might be like. So again, it can be very useful up front to kind of gather that information from your learners to see, well, what do they have access to, even from a device perspective, I suppose, and to make sure that whatever learning you're developing for them online will actually work for them. So again, that's very much about assumptions. I guess setting expectations would be the second one that I would recommend. Even when we're talking about their technical capabilities, that's very important that they understand what they need to be able to engage with their learning. But also, if you're looking at synchronous and or asynchronous sessions, it's good to make your learners aware of when they need to be online, for example, to engage with you or to engage with other learners, just to get them, used to kind of a calendar process where they need to know, when they need to be engaging with particular elements. Also, I guess a lot of us kind of assume that the strategy we already have for face-to-face learning will automatically translate to an online environment, and that's something that can be a big mistake to make. So what I would recommend is, if you have learning outcomes that you've developed for your face-to-face learning, revisit those and see, how can we adapt what our solution is, or what we're doing with the online delivery to those learning outcomes. So again, go back to what is the problem we're trying to solve for our learners before we jump into a potential solution. And again, it's it comes back to what we do at Learnovate. We always look at problems before we look at solutions, and it's all about identifying what the learning need is before identifying the solution. So Linda, we know a lot of companies will kind of go to the technology first and we'll look at, look, there's Zoom is out there, we can use that, or we can use our learning management system, or we can use whatever pops up, and then try to shoehorn the learning experience into the technology rather than the other way around. So I guess it's very much about looking at what does your learner need, and then how you can achieve it through whatever technology or tools that you have.
And what methods of teaching and studying remotely are the ones that really, really work?
Absolutely. So what I would say is, again, because it's not a face-to-face environment anymore, you're not getting that kind of level of interaction that you might have with your students. So where possible, try to integrate as much interaction between you and your learners and the learners with each other as you can, because again, it can be very isolating to be at home. If people are at home, working at home, working remotely, studying remotely, it can be a very isolating and lonely sort of situation. So again, bring in interactions. Number one, allow people to interact with each other and collaborate with each other. So provide collaborative tools and tasks that people can work on as in smaller groups, or even as a group as a whole, so that at least people feel that they're interacting with other learners and other people. And also to give them some like even just basic quizzing or any kind of, activities that they can carry out, rather than if they're simply engaging with very flat learning material, as in, death by PowerPoint, if you want to look at it that way. It does become very, very tiring over time, and people just tend to switch off, and you just get that cognitive overload situation where people just can't take in any more information. So kind of mix it up as much as you can.
Okay.
Another thing I would say is, there is a sort of a tendency sometimes to record your face-to-face material and just put that online. And I would say you're missing a trick there with regard to using your synchronous time as well as possible. So what I would say is provide the content and the material up front to your learners, and then use any synchronous face-to-face time you have in a better way. For example, addressing their concerns, their questions, having a discussion about the material, having a quiz, whatever that might be. So again, it's sort of like flipping the classroom. So you're like flipping, the training room as such, and providing people with the content, and then using the face-to-face time in a kind of a better and more effective way. Again, with regard to communications, there's a lot of communications tools out there, from WhatsApp to, synchronous face-to-face.
Yeah.
We look at Microsoft Teams and Zoom and on Google Hangouts and all that. We can talk about that a little later. But I think it's important when you're communicating with learners, particularly in this current environment, to personalize that experience as much as possible, because again, people are feeling isolated, and even to use someone's name in an email, even to recognize the person, is very important to their feeling of engagement with the learning and with the course or whatever it might be, with their training, their workplace training, and that's quite an easy thing to do. And also the use of video can be really nice to kind of be able to see a person. So again, we're thinking about people who haven't been in the workplace, maybe haven't been in their lecture theatre, whatever it might be, for a long time, and they haven't seen people for a while. Yeah, and sometimes.
And I suppose it is that thing that we're all working remotely, and trying to keep that team spirit going as well, and understanding kind of that some people are finding it quite difficult to work remotely, and linking in, and the video is a really good way of doing that.
Absolutely. And the thing is, it can be recorded videos where you might record a little piece of information, for example, not an entire lecture, an entire piece of learning, but a small message even to your learners, to people who are working at home, just to say, hi, thinking about you, hope you're getting on okay, or whatever. It's to bring that personal touch, but also we don't want to have people on video conferences all day, every day, because I think at this point everyone knows how exhausting that can be as well. So it's kind of to get a balance of the two, I think, is what you're looking for, really, to be honest.
Yeah, kind of that bite-sized piece, or that bite-sized approach as well.
Yeah.
So just going on from that, Janet, around, I'm really interested to understand around the assessment and how important reflection and feedback is.
Oh yeah, that's a really good question. So very important. So I guess if I address reflection first, reflection is something that I think, particularly in an online environment, creates that deeper learning experience and allows learners to kind of look back over what they've learned, but also how they've learned, and to kind of, put their thoughts down somehow on what they might have done differently.
So Janet, another question I have for you is, what tools do you think are useful for online learning?
So I suppose, from my perspective, I don't want to come up with a big list of tools and a big list of technologies for people, because I think a lot of people are kind of overwhelmed by what's out there, and the problem is in choosing the right solution for your learning problem. So again, I'm thinking of some of the things we've already talked about. So if you're looking at things like synchronous sessions where you have discussions with your learners, you can use the likes of Zoom or Microsoft Teams, which are quite useful because they have breakout rooms. So if you've got a big cohort of learners, for example, you can put them into smaller groups, and that also helps with collaborative type tasks or projects. So you can put people in smaller groups that can work together and then come back to the larger team and kind of share what they've been doing and stuff like that. Blogging and e-portfolio tools, I quite like WordPress because it's quite easy to use and quite easy to set up. Weebly is another one that you can use, and both of those I think allow commenting from other learners and from tutors, so you can share, and you can have privacy. So whether you want to share your blog post with everybody or just with your tutor and that kind of stuff, it offers that kind of functionality.
And I know within ourselves in Learnbase, we've been using Mural in terms of the workshops. That's quite.
Yeah, so Mural's a really good whiteboarding one. So Mural or Miro, they're quite, both of them are quite similar, have different functionality in a couple of different areas, but both are really good for whiteboarding, for running those online workshops. So they have a lot of already uploaded templates in there. So if you want to do that kind of work, it's really useful. Another one I would say to add to that, Linda, would be if you're doing sort of collaborative online work, wikis are really useful too. So lots of people can
Okay.
add to a wiki at different times or at the same time, and it's a really nice kind of informal collaborative tool. And then I suppose if we're just looking at chat and something that's informal and making people feel like, there's always somebody there, even if there isn't all the time, but just to have that interaction, look at something like Slack, which is a nice sort of discussion tool, or even WhatsApp. I mean, everyone uses WhatsApp, and not everybody will engage with it, but it's nice to be part of a group and know that there's other people out there. And if there's questions and that kind of stuff, it can be really useful for people to engage with each other.
Brilliant. And I suppose, like, I've been hearing a lot from companies as well, where I suppose they have been using online to complement their face-to-face learning. But
Mm-hmm.
obviously now with COVID, many institutions and organizations are kind of looking at alternative ways to continue to deliver learning to staff
Mm-hmm.
and employees for an extended period of time, and into the future as well. So I suppose, what would you say to people who may be concerned about continuing to move their learning online?
Well, I would say there's a couple of things there. I suppose some people, I guess, have been already thinking about it, as you were saying. A lot of companies we've been engaging with have already been thinking about whether, kind of engaging with that blended approach or moving fully online. But some people have kind of been forced into it at this point. And I would say the number one thing is don't worry. Okay. So I think, sometimes we feel like we're being forced into the online environment and forget how much it actually offers. And it can be difficult, as I said earlier, even choosing the tools or the approaches. But again, go back to what you know about learning and what you want to do for your learners, and then look at the tools that are available and see what will work best for you or what other companies have done. I think it's very much at this point, if you're kind of trying to do it really quickly, it's very much trial and error. So like if something doesn't work for whatever reason, then look at something else, because we're all in that period of trying to kind of do the best we can at the minute, and especially with what we already have. So if you have a couple of tools that you're using, even if you're not necessarily using them for learning at the moment, it could be tools that you're using at home or engaging with your family online or whatever it might be. Just think about what those tools might be and whether you could use them for your learning. But the other thing I will say is, I guess sometimes we feel like we're forced online and then forget online is actually a fantastic way to learn. It offers massive flexibility to people. And I would say, Linda, particularly like, the likes of yourself where you're working at home and if you've got childcare and all that kind of stuff, it's giving people that flexibility to kind of go, well, look, I'll do a bit in the evening, when I have time, rather than I have to be sitting in a lecture theatre or in a training room or whatever it is.
Yeah, and definitely, I suppose you probably hear this and other people as well, in terms of now is a great time to be able to kind of go back to learning, particularly even if you want to do a course where you can have time to tap into that, and where people may not have been able to go to a physical a physical building to do the learning, that they can now do it with that flexibility, as you said, to tip in and out when they have time to do that.
Yeah,
Really great.
absolutely. And also, I mean, the other thing from that is you can actually learn a lot from doing a course online yourself if you then have to engage with providing learning to somebody else. And I'll just take it back, I guess, to like my own personal experience as well, is that I did my master's in digital education fully online, and I didn't set foot in Edinburgh until I graduated. But it was probably the best course I've ever engaged with. And it was because there was the right mix of synchronous and asynchronous activity, lots of different types of activities, lots of different tools we engaged with. And again, they were for the right reasons, and not just that the university was throwing a load of tools at it and saying, oh, here, do this week and we'll use this next week. It was about kind of mixing up the experience, making sure people were engaged, checking in with people through discussion boards to make sure that they were getting on okay. So it's that combination of different things. So if you are engaging, I guess, with an online course yourself, think about what elements of that you've actually found very useful and how you can bring that to your learners. So again, I'll always say try it out, see what works for you, and if it doesn't work, then just try something else and just see how you get on, because we're going to make mistakes. And I think the worst thing to do, and I'll go back to what I said at the very start, is taking your learning, putting it online and going, that's it, that's the learning done. That's the biggest mistake. And I think if we're not doing that, then we're doing something better than that.
That's great, Janet. Thanks a million for that. And I suppose you're joined as well within Learnovate with a team of experts in learning technologies and innovation, and working with clients who are looking to move their learning online. And if there's areas that people finding particular challenge, they can reach out to us in the centre itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're really lucky in that respect as well, Linda, like that we have like a great bunch. Like I'm actually part of the innovation services team myself, so I deliver a lot of those sort of innovation workshops. But to have the tech, background as well, we have tech leads who understand the technology and what the challenges are and what people might need, as well as the design experts in the centre who will, make sure that people are having a good user and learner experience. So we're very lucky that we have that bunch of people that if anyone needs any help with any respect to moving online, I think we're in a very good position to be able to help people. So very open to anyone contacting us to kind of help them out. So that would be great.
Brilliant. So thanks a million, Janet, for sharing your insights and tips with us today. And we look forward to our next online discussions. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda.